Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Zander Sprague.
Hello, epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Zander Sprague, and today I am honored to be joined by Mario Wissa. Mario, tell us who you are and what you do.
I am many things, by the way, but for the sake of this podcast, as you mentioned, my name is Mario Wissa, and I'm actually a communication researcher, author, and speaker. And I spread the good word about communication and how it is an incredible, invisible power that we use on a daily basis, consciously or unconsciously.
Awesome. That is, and communication obviously is so important, and so much of communication is the subtle, the nonverbal. And it sounds like from reading your bio, you know a little about that. So just a little bit. So I know you've traveled extensively, studied many different cultures, language, how communication happens. What would you say is the biggest difference, let's say, between, I'll say, American nonverbal communication and perhaps over in Asia?
Oh my God. Okay. So obviously you said Asia. It's we did not talk about like specific country, but
okay,
I'm
well,
you
can choose a country. I just know that there are differences.
I'm gonna have to start with like the funny subtle that we all know from whether social media or movies, the Indian head shake,
The bobblehead.
It's always yes, no, maybe. It's always like that. That's confusing as heck. And the funny thing about this is, Xander, that when you are surrounded by these behaviors, you start to absorb them without realizing. After 3 weeks, you just like go and buy something and someone is asking like, do you want one or two? Is that enough? And you go like, oh yeah, sure, that's enough. After 3 weeks, it's incredible. It's not a joke. Monkey see, monkey do. Honestly.
Absolutely.
It's really powerful. And I have to slow down for a second and tell you, I was not really kidding when I said I know that much in communication, because the more I learn, the more I realize that I'm never going to live long enough to even know half of it. Truly.
Oh, sure.
And I try to share what's enough to, no, not share enough, not to overwhelm people, I should say. You asked what is the one obstacle? What was your question again? Sorry.
Well, no, just the difference between the kind of nonverbal communications in different cultures, because there are obviously there's things, and I'm going to make some big generalization. Talking with your hands.
Yeah.
Certain languages, countries, cultures talk with their hands a lot. Others do not, and waving your hands around could be seen as offensive or whatnot.
So there are actually, yes, the hands in Asia, especially in India, the hands and the head is everywhere. In Egypt, not so much. They tend to kind of like put it behind them, and that's a sign of respect, even though for us in the US might mean that you're hiding something. Also, a very important nonverbal cue that I paid attention to, two, one is the eye contact.
Yep.
And two, the position that we sit in. The eye contact varies so much in culture, especially between generations. Here in the US, this eye contact, it means I am tuned in, you're tuned in, we're in this together. Different culture like Egypt or India or Bali, you're actually not supposed to look in the eye of someone who's like older than you. It's a sign of disrespect, which is baffling to me. The second thing is nonverbal cues, the way we sit down. Believe it or not, if you have someone older than you and they're speaking, you cannot sit down unless they're sitting down. You only move around if they allow you to. It's like the older person holds the vibe of the environment, and
Yeah.
we're supposed to lead with that. I think for me personally, in the US, the idea is a little bit more liberating. It's not age decision, it's more about your position and what kind of passion you actually put out in that position, and that gives you the power. So that's a simple distinction. I'm happy to go deeper, but
No,
these are
no,
two good ones.
that's great. I mean, I was many years ago. I worked at a really large. I worked at Intel, and one of the classes I got to take, which was fascinating because I work with a worldwide team,
Mm,
was called Global Communications, and it was man, I wish more people would have this because they were talking about how different cultures communicate. So, for example, they were talking about people from Israel tend to be incredibly direct, and here in the
mhm.
United States, we take it that they're angry or whatnot, and they're not. They're simply just talking to you very directly. They're not mincing words, and that was helpful because I had some colleagues who were I work with who were in Tel Aviv, and I thought when I talked to them, wow, he always sounds so angry. Like, what's he angry about? I thought we were
It's
agreeing, right?
assertive.
And they talked about sort of the Indian, the shaking head and like if you see that, they're not really agreeing with you, and they may do what you've asked or they may not. How, for example, in China or Japan, silence is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a sign of respect. It can be, they're not going to come out and go, yeah, no, there's no way I'm doing that for you. They just will be quiet. And that's sort of your clue that that's not working. And, as a mental health professional, I'm fascinated by nonverbal communication
Mm.
because when I'm doing counseling, I'm paying close attention to your nonverbal, your body cues about what's going on. Because your words may say, oh, Xander, everything is fine. And yet you're all closed up you know. So I have to say, I'm fascinated that you've taken it upon yourself to sort of go study communication because you're right. We can't, there's no way that we're going to even scratch the surface, but it's just fascinating what you learn.
That is so true. And you brought something that I had to take down some notes so I can bring it up because my own personal experience, uh, I was able to make sense of it when I went to visit Egypt back like 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So until 20 years ago, if someone is assertive and concise about their message and their sentence is really trimmed and direct, I used to think those people are difficult and honestly, they're a-holes. Now, studying communication and getting involved in a corporate world and getting higher education, more experiences, I became that. And I was not aware of it until I went a couple of years ago to visit Egypt. And I see how I was very assertive, direct, straightforward, in a compassionate, loving way. Yet, most people around me remind me of how I used to behave before, not direct, not with much confidence, not
Right.
very assertive. It's like, maybe we could, probably, all these languages. So, really, the environment shapes us even when we are not aware of it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And sort of the communication in the words that we use and stuff like that for whether it's a individual society like here in the United States or a collective society, more in the, I'll call it Asian model, to paint a broad,
Mm,
a broad swath there.
yeah. Hmm.
And so, I mean, you're clearly on an epic journey. How did you come to sort of want to study communication. I know you were born in Egypt and then you came to the United States. I'm always fascinated to find out. I'm taking a little detour here, Mario. So hold on. I've got a question, but I just came up with a new one. So, what were one or two of the things when you first arrived in the U.S. that were most surprising to you?
Wait, are we talking from the communication
I
perspective or
know,
general?
just no, just
Because
for
I'm
you.
happy to tell you what the
Maybe
communication is.
things that you thought were going to be one way. I don't want to taint your answer. I'm going to share a story after you answer of how a colleague of mine answered. So, but what were one or two of the things when you first arrived that you again just surprised you, or unexpected, or
I'm going to give you two
okay,
from the environment
sure,
perspective and another two from the social interactive
okay,
communication.
cool,
How about that?
that's awesome.
Okay. So the first two are really simple: cleanliness, and people actually follow traffic lights. It's like Christmas decorations.
Yes.
From communication and social interaction, there is a different flavor of niceness actually in the American culture, even coming from Egypt. Simple smile, simple hi, hello. It doesn't have to go anywhere after that, just a simple interaction. And two, people actually sometimes have to schedule times to like meet up. Scheduling time and putting something on the calendar is a very, very business mentality in Egypt. Here, oh, we're doing Halloween party. Okay, let me pull the calendar and just add this time. Or, oh, you're going on that trip. Which day? Let me see if I'm open on that calendar. It's a little too corporate, yet it's effective in a long run.
Definitely. And yeah, it's funny. You first thing you said was cleanliness, and I will say I've been fortunate to travel to many places in the world and went to school with and work with people from different countries and stuff. And hygiene standards are different. And I'll leave it at that because I don't. I just they're different. Perhaps Americans are a little more obsessed about showering and wearing deodorant and stuff, and other places not so much. So, and I get that. It's not right or wrong. So the story I wanted to tell you is I asked a friend of mine who had emigrated from Russia, and I love to
Okay.
ask people who are not
Mm.
born in the U.S. like what was it like? And he said for him and his wife, when they first arrived, they had an apartment. They had to go to the supermarket to buy like just basic stuff, salt, pepper, toilet
Mm.
paper,
Mm-hmm.
milk, butter, eggs, all of that. And they walked into the supermarket, and he told me that first of all they were overwhelmed because they had never in their wildest dreams imagined there'd be a store with so much.
Oh, right.
His wife started to cry because
Hmm.
she just couldn't believe that here were shelves that were full. And he's like, it took us 3 hours and we honestly bought maybe 25 things. Like we didn't do some huge, it wasn't like he's like, I never had more than one choice for butter or milk or toilet paper or salt or pepper. And he's like, and I'm going down the spice aisle, and he's like, how do I know? How do I? He goes, salt to salt. How am I choosing which one I want? Right? How do I choose which toilet paper is right? So I love to ask people who have emigrated, like, what was it like? What did you like? What did you think? And what was the reality? And as I said, I've been fortunate to go to different countries. There's things that I thought would be one way and they aren't. There are other things. You talked about the use of or obeying stoplights. I have traveled in many countries where I've come up with a strategy as I'm riding in a car, and that is to look down at the horizon.
Mm.
Because if I concentrate on what's in front of me,
Mm.
because of the way different countries drive,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's only so many times I can go before I pass out.
Yeah, I really have strong urge to tell you a joke right now, but I don't know. I'll try to make it short. Can I? Would you allow me? I'll try to make it really
Absolutely.
short
I
and
love a
sweet.
good joke.
So there's this American dude who went to Egypt to visit for the first time. So he got picked up from the airport by a professional taxi driver.
Yep.
So as the taxi driver driving down the road, he comes across red light, does not even slow down, goes through the red light. The first time, the passenger in the back, the American guy's like, "Whoa, hey man, it's red." Who's like, the driver said, "Don't worry, I am professional." So he did that the second light, the third light, red, and keeps going through until he got to a green light. Then he stopped. The driver stopped. The passenger in the back was really baffled, like, "What is going on? It's a green light." And the driver said, "Sir, just in case there's a professional coming from the other side." I
Now,
love this joke. It always makes me laugh. It's
uh,
different culture. It's different culture.
it
So
is. And also, I have not yet traveled to Egypt, but my understanding is car horns are used often.
I think it's not used more than it's used. I kid you. Oh, that's yeah. Oof, that's something else. After being gone for like 15 plus years, and to go back and visit Egypt with those
And you couldn't
horns,
sleep because you're like, oh my
it's
God, the cacophony.
for real. I don't go out that much using earplugs more than it's amazing. You think I lived for like 15 years in this environment, it would be normal for me, but no. Time passes by, the mind evolved, expectations evolve, the nervous system evolves, our responses evolve. So
Totally, totally. And it always interesting to talk to people and go, what did you think? What was the reality? The shocking, the shocking things. I always wonder, I hear two things. One, Americans are rude, and if you don't speak English, we just talk to you louder because we think if we talk to you louder, you're going to understand us somehow. And I haven't noticed anyone who doesn't speak English go, all right, I'm going to speak French at you louder so that you understand me. But then I hear, and my observation is Americans are very, we're friendly. Most people want to get to know you. Now, that's not true 100%. That's true. It's not true in any country. But in general, we're like, oh, hey, this is interesting. Who are you? We're curious. What has been your experience as you've traveled around, in terms of people's natural curiosity, or we'll say cultural curiosity?
it is actually really interesting, especially when I was told before I started traveling Asia in 2017. I was told that no matter what you put on, no matter what local clothes that you put on, no matter how you try to hide, something about you will always show that you are not from here. You're a
Mm-hmm.
foreigner, like from India or, Bali. And these places, you realize that you are a celebrity without be wanting to be one. People want to. It's honestly kind of scary and it's overwhelming. People want to take pictures. Some people are begging. Some people like want to ask you like, which country you're from, or some of them just want to practice English with you. To really keep open mind is really really important because even though it's overwhelming at the beginning, yet they're just simply humans who are curious, as you said. And, we do struggle with this. If someone is curious about something about us, we feel like they're nosy, but they're genuinely curious. They don't see foreigner every day, with like
Yeah,
sandals and socks. That's only on TV. Sandals and socks. They see that in person. So being open for new experiences, it's just like you say, honestly, epic to just to take one step forward, to take it intentionally, mindfully, and just be aware that we're surrounded by other humans who are simply doing their best. So being kind and
absolutely.
compassion is very important.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've discovered is in traveling is that sometimes the hardest communication is actually in other English speaking countries, because there are subtle societal differences
Mm,
Versus if I'm in China, for example, I'm aware that there's big differences and it's in some ways easier. I took a semester in university and studied in Australia. Now they speak English, but there's subtle things. There are colloquial sayings
Yeah.
that I don't know. So I mean, one of my first experiences, I was standing in a queue. I learned that was a line, but I was in the queue.
Okay.
And this woman asked, "Are you right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm left-handed, but what does that have to do with the stamp that I want to buy, right? Am I like somehow being left-handed now gonna, be ostracized or something?" I just couldn't. All it meant was, "Have you been helped? Have you, like, are you right? Have you been
Yeah.
helped?"
Hmm.
And I'm standing there like utterly confused. Now, again, it's not that I didn't understand the word. I just didn't understand the word as it was being used. And I'm like, "Can I get a stamp?" "Oh, yeah, no problem." And then this went on and I was trying to figure out, like, are you right? Like again, I'm a smart man. I can figure stuff out, but I'm like, I've got no cultural context.
Uh-huh.
And cultural context can be so helpful. I didn't understand as I was meeting people, what is the norm? Is it okay for me to say to people who are in my class, "Hey, let's go get a cup of coffee"? Or is that too formal? Are there things that have to happen in a certain way? I didn't know. So that's why I say sometimes going into a country that speaks your language, all of a sudden you're like, but it's different. Even in the United States, different parts of the United States, they're different accents, things have different meanings, different words are used for the same thing. My older sister went to college in New Orleans and she said, "I have to go make groceries." I'm like, "How are you making, like, are you making a bag of flour? I mean, I don't understand." She goes, "No, no, no. That's just what we call going to the store. I got to go make groceries." You're laughing because I think you probably have encountered some of that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. Honestly, I'm trying really hard to just like not interrupt you and share the
No,
couple
no,
of
it's
stories in
okay.
my
I
own head
probably am going to interrupt you. So,
because it's so funny. So the most recent one is in Bali. If I'm giving you a medicine, I just tell you, give you the medicine and tell you just take these, right? They always say when they give you a medicine, they give it to you and they say, now consume.
mhm.
That's not how I'm a consumer in the US, but I'm not sure if I want to be consumer here too. The second one is again 25 years ago when I first moved to the US. My English was really basic. I was like 17 years of age. I went to the grocery store with my brother, and the cashier lady simply looked at me and she said, "Hey, what's up?" And what do I do? Wow. I look up at the ceiling and I'm looking for what's up. And obviously, my brother lost it. The cashier lady lost it. I'm like clueless kid in the middle to explain it to me. So, yeah, small little things like that. Culture and language. Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, another experience I had, I was going down to Tasmania to travel. And I met this woman on the plane and I'm talking to her and she's like, "Oh, well, if you get here, if you, get over here, give me a call." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And I had her name and her number and I was just traveling around
Mhm.
and I went out to, I believe it was Nelson State Park, and I'm staying like in a kind of a bed and breakfast. And I come down one morning and the innkeeper was like, "You're Xander." I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "You're in trouble." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" Forgetting, of course, that Australia's a rather small country. It's the size of the US, but only has 17 million people. Perhaps I'm a little distinctive. I don't know. But that woman who I'd met on the plane actually lived about 2 miles away, and someone had been talking about this American or whatever and said, "Oh, he's got a great name. His name is Xander." And she goes,
Yeah.
"Well, there can only be one American Xander, right?" She was sort of hurt that I hadn't called her and she would offer me a place to stay.
Mm.
But I just hadn't connected because I was just traveling around, hadn't looked at a map. So I called her up and I said, "Look, I am really sorry. I did not mean any offense. I just honestly, was not putting two and two together, and
Mhm.
I'm really sorry." But it was like I encountered that in Australia, that if someone meets you and says, "Look me up," they're actually serious and they will be offended if you don't.
In Australia,
In Australia, yeah.
not in Egypt. we have this saying, we call it how do they call it? Sailor's offer, or some kind of sailor, like, yeah,
Yeah,
some kind of sailor's offer is like, oh, you're on the shore in the middle of the water and say, hey, come on over. It's
yeah,
impossible, but I'm inviting you.
yeah.
They don't mean
I
it's
get the
just
credit for
niceness.
inviting you, but I actually didn't expect you to show up.
100% Egyptian people. Assertiveness. That's an
Yeah,
example of what I was talking about. Instead of saying, sorry, I cannot do it right now, I'm actually engaged. Yet
yeah,
I would love to maybe schedule something in a day or two or a week. They don't have the ability to do that.
yeah. Nonverbal cues are so important when we're communicating. And one of the things that I've noticed is and I'm going to sound old here for a moment, Mario, the younger people
Mhm.
and their obsession with like just typing. Everything's, you know, not everything they want to do. They're texting, they're
Text format.
posting, whatever.
Mhm.
And, as a mental health professional, I did I did my internship in school base. I was in high school and, middle school. And I said, look, you have to talk to people. And the problem with texting is I can't understand what you're saying. So it's up to me to interpret whether you're angry with me, you're joking with me. And I said, when we speak, and I'll use the words shut up, okay? If I say to you, shut up, Mario, you get from my tonality that I want you to be quiet. But if I'm like, shut up,
Yes.
you understand I'm not telling you to be quiet. It's a disbelief.
Yes.
If it's whatever. You don't get that in a text. Or if you try and put that in a text, there's 5 lines of going, I'm kidding here. Ha ha. You know,
Drop down menu, trying to choose the right emoji, and you click on the
right.
wrong emoji, and you have to delete it.
Right. Or people, like, you write something and then someone's like all upset and they're getting upset and they give you all caps back. What the heck? And then you're like, but what just happened to this communication? Because I'm a talker, not a typer, I will pick up the phone 9 times out of 10 because I find synchronous conversations versus asynchronous are so much faster, efficient, and get to the point. My time is valuable.
Mm.
I started working with a telehealth company to do mental health. And they asked me if I was open to doing therapy over chat. I said, absolutely not.
I can answer that for you. Yeah, for you now, from what you
Okay,
told me.
for 2 reasons. One, I'm a talker, not a typer. But
Mhm.
more importantly, if I can't see you, I have and all we're doing is texting. I was like, I don't know how how I'd effectively do any therapy. I have no idea what you're telling me and whether, frankly, you're telling me what you think I want to hear. But if I can see you, I can maybe tell that you are upset.
So what's coming up for me now, I really have to bring up, because you shared this so wonderfully. You have a deeper perception of the message that's being said, how it's being said, the tonality, the space between each word and each letter. Some people actually not as tuned in, and they actually take the message for face value.
Yep.
You have a privilege of this deeper perception, deeper awareness. And yeah, that makes you make an impact in a different way by speaking. Absolutely. I love it. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, again, there are things that 2 daughters who they don't necessarily understand. There's things that we needed to do. So if I wanted to be mean to you in high school, Mario, I actually had to do it to your face. I couldn't be
Oh.
anonymous. If I wanted to say something mean to you, I actually had to say it. Maybe maybe I'd drop a note or something, but that was
Mm.
about as indirect as I might get.
Mhm, mhm.
Versus randomly making a comment under in not having to put my name to it, right?
Passive aggressiveness thing, yeah. Passive
Yeah.
aggressiveness, it usually shows the lack of having
Or if you had to
tools.
break up with someone, like you were dating someone and you decided it's not working, actually had to learn how to deliver bad news in person versus just a text. Hey, it's not working out. Bye. There's sort of a lack.
TTY. Don't
Hmm?
forget TTY at the end. Talk to you
Yeah.
later. Talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Or TTN, talk to you never.
Oh,
But yeah, they're in some ways sad. I think there's some communication that's getting lost, or an art of communication, and human interaction, right?
I really have strong urge to bring this up right now because
Okay.
you kind of started to touch on it a minute ago, and I think it's really important. What you are sharing with me right now with your experience, I assume teenager daughters.
They're 18 and 20, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, teenagers. Okay, well, not 20. It would be
Yeah, but
upset if the 20 heard I say teenager. I'd be like, I'm not. Sorry.
yeah, teenager
um,
in my mind, but anyway.
Actually, this awareness that you're bringing up right now is one of the primary reasons why, from really young age, I was looking for a different way to deal with conflict resolution,
Mhm.
how to interact with other people. Because to be frank with you, the environment that I grew up in had somewhat limited resources, limited education, and the societal position, and all that.
Definitely.
But part of me, even from a really young age, part of me always thought there's something better. There must be a better way to do this. And that's why I keep studying. Communication was not the first thing I studied. I studied psychology, anthropology, accounting, business, IT. I tried different things until I came across one communication class and a huge light bulb came on. So I think all of us, especially at young age, kids, we really tuned into what our family dynamics like and
Yep.
personal relationships are like, and we can actually detect there might be room for improvement.
Absolutely.
If that comes up, hang on to it and keep searching. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, the breakthrough, there's no turning back from a breakthrough.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Mario.
Thank
Mario,
you.
this has been so enlightening and so much fun.
You're so kind. You're so kind.
I want to thank you so much. How can people find you, get a hold of you, learn more about what you're doing with communication?
All you have to do is just use the flashlight and project the word communication on the sky, and I will come up to you. That's like, I never said that before. I love this idea. My website, humbly put together by my amazing marketing team, my first name, last name, so mario.wissa.com. You can reach out to me, my email there, contact me at mariowissa.com. And you also have the option to book a 30-minute one-on-one session together, charge free, cost free. I don't charge any money for what I'm doing. I just think life deserves more awesomeness. I'm like trying to offer some of that. So that's all.
Cool. Well, Mario, thank you so much. I'll make sure to have the link to your website in the show description. I want to remind everyone that if you're ready to step into your epic, go to epicbegins.com. And as always, remember, epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book Epic Begins with One Step Forward at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Zander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Zander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.